And yes, here we are, folks. We are live in the spoiler room. Thank you for joining us tonight. Very excited as we continue our All Legs month here in the spoiler room, where we're looking at spider themed movies. And yeah, it's been kind of a bumpy road for a couple of us. Some fun, campy views, some not so fun, campy views. But tonight, I think we've got a classic on our hands here. Technically, a Universal monster film.
Yes.
In the form of Tarantula from 1955. And I have some wonderful folks with me tonight to talk about it. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. Huzzah. And yes, tonight, he is back with us. The man, the myth, the legend himself is Mr. Joe Randazzo. How you doing, Joe?
Everyone.
So glad to have you. And Ian, after a short stint, he didn't go running away screaming. He is back with us. Right hand man, it is Mr. Ian Simmons. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. I'm always here for you, Mark, except when I can't be. So there you go.
Okay. And folks, yes, we have, she came back. We didn't scare her off. She is back with us as well. We have Celeste from Hexen Arcane. Celeste, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for inviting me. I love tarantulas, so it's a good topic for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, since you love Tarantula, can you give the synopsis of Tarantula?
It's basically like any 50s horror movie where a scientist does some mad experiments and they go horribly wrong and bad things happen. And then innocent creatures pay the price for man's madness. That's
wow. You should write those for like IMDb, or at least if Netflix was still doing discs, you could write that down, because that'd be more accurate than whatever we got on those discs back in the day. But yes, 1955, directed by Jack Arnold, who was no stranger to the creature feature at all. And yeah, this one is a classic for many reasons, and I'm sure we'll dive into it. My oldest watched it with me. He's 24. He's going to be 25 soon. Oh, dear Lord, in like 2 weeks. But he watched it with me and he goes, it wasn't completely boring. So I'll take that. I'll take that, right?
It suffers from the 1950s creature feature thing, which is like half the movie is people talking about something that's eventually going to happen. And then it finally happens. But in this one, it's actually worth the wait, because it actually pays off. And I think part of it, you said it's a Universal monster movie. Technically, I think part of it is that it was made with, the entire, studio of Universal behind it. You had all their craftsmen, all their writers, all their team. And I think it benefits from that, because you're not somebody who's scrambling around for money. You got everything you need right down the lot. And I think that always elevates these Universal movies a little bit in this time period, even the ones that aren't the best. But this one I actually like. And Jack Arnold, Incredible Shrinking Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon, like this guy made a lot of great movies on the Universal lot, a lot of great sci-fi movies, horror movies, and some good noirs too. But yeah, my first viewing of this, because I'd always be like, oh, okay, it's a silly, giant tarantula movie, so I never really watched it. But Halloween of 2008, I believe.
Wow.
Zachary, for whatever reason, they brought back Creature Feature on WPIX, and they had Zachary host it for one night only, and I think it was Halloween night. It was whatever the Saturday, Halloween Saturday was, and they showed this movie, and I watched it because I was super interested in horror hosts, and I just checked it out, and I was like, oh my god, this is and my girlfriend at the time and I were checking it out. We're like, this is one that we've kind of slept on, because we actually really enjoyed that one. And then the next year they did it again with Elvira, but they showed The Evil of Frankenstein instead of, which is also Universal,
right?
Sort of, but it's Hammer, but owned by Universal in the U.S. So, but yeah, the thing that immediately struck me about it is all the the last 20 minutes or so when you get the giant spider rampage, it's actually really fun. It's flipping over cars and it's killing rednecks left and right. The thing that always puzzled me though is, and it puzzles me also with Earth versus the Spider, which we just showed on the last drive-in a couple weeks ago. How the fuck does nobody see this thing?
It is a desert. It's a desert, and there's less population, which we learned about. Which we'll talk about those population numbers a little later.
Yeah.
But, so, Celeste, you say you're a fan of this. You remember when you first watched it, and
I probably saw it like 15 or so years ago. I was watching, probably a little bit more actually, maybe around that. I was watching a bunch of black and white old horror movies, and it came up. And what I like about it, because I watch horror movies a lot of time, I separate them into two categories: one that creates a fear, and one that plays into a fear. So, like fear of clowns, people didn't have a fear of clowns necessarily that much until it. So that created a fear, but tarantulas, it's playing on a pre-existing fear because most people are naturally afraid of spiders. So it's always cool when they can take one of those and make it kind of creepy, but also funny. I think hindsight funny, not funny at the time.
No, they definitely are going for the scares with this more so than humor, though. I think it's got a good mixture for it. So, but Ian, what about you? First time watch? When did you first watch this?
Today.
Oh,
okay. So first time.
Yeah, I think I'd seen like clips from it, and my dad may have watched it when I was really young, but I had no interest in it, which mirrors my experience today. Joe, you mentioned the studio sleeping on it. I almost slept through it. Wow. The last 20 minutes, you're right. That's the most fun part of it. It's just the slog getting to it. I feel like this is a mad scientist movie about runaway proteins more than it is a giant spider film, and I just kept forgetting that it was about a giant spider. I can't believe that this is done by the same guy who did The Creature from the Black Lagoon. Mark, when you call this movie a classic, I think you're saying classic in the terms that it means it's old. Okay, not everything old is a classic or worthwhile. And Joe, to your point about Universal having all the resources, pouring all their resources into this movie, I don't see it. Especially, there is one very glaring, I don't know if it's a Matt problem or what, but when the tarantula comes up over the mountain in one of the scenes and its limbs are like kind of like up and splaying, ooh, very impressive, except that the sky cuts off two of its limbs because it's running into the mat. I'm like, come on, guys.
I loved that. I was watching that too. I was like, oh, okay, turn the spider. He's going into the sky part.
Well, what I meant was more the infrastructure was there, more so than the resources. Because clearly this is a low budget movie, but you can't tell versus like say an Ed Wood movie made in 1955, which you could see that there's no money there. Here, it actually looks like a professionally shot film for the most part.
Sure,
it is better. It is better shot than the Horrors of Spider Island. Come on, now.
Well, that's definitely
it's not this. This isn't horrible by any means.
No, it's just dreadfully boring. And it's fine. People love their giant spider movies. I just would have loved more giant spider in my giant spider movie.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was
Celeste.
gonna say, can I give you some trivia on what kind of tarantula I think they used for it?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was some kind of Grammostola, probably a Grammostola rosea that is just like this, except...
Oh,
that does look a lot like it. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was, and it was definitely a female.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
How can you tell it was a female?
Because I could see where the book lungs are when they saw it first on the glass.
Oh,
you can kind of sex them from the book lungs usually.
I thought you were talking about like when it mutated because it's like this giant inky fuzzy black thing. You're talking about like when we first see it in the cage before it escaped.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I sexed it real quick.
And that's there's a missed opportunity, like laying the spider eggs, or something like that.
But where's it going to find a giant tarantula male?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it found a stud before it got out, and Things
What,
happen.
at 6 days old or something?
Hey, I'm not.
What's
We
the
don't need to get
lifespan?
into all that, but
I don't even know what's the average lifespan for one of these things. Is 6 days kind of almost adulthood for a spider, or no?
No, especially these ones, they grow very slowly. So, like that one is, I've had her for 10 years. She's probably around 15.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, there was a line of dialogue in here about it could live a long life up to 25 years.
Yep.
So 25 years is
around
a long life. Yeah.
That's very similar to the lifespan of the Grandma Stola Rosea, so I'm pretty sure what it is.
But Ian mentioning, that this is boring until the last 20 minutes, I'm like, that's kind of like them. It's kind of like all these movies, because a lot of the times it was, the technology wasn't there for them to, like, actually make it look good. So I think they just tried to hide it as much as possible until the very end when you got to show it. Because all these giant, the only one, no, Earth versus the Spider, actually, you get the giant spider right at the beginning. But everything else, it's a lot of guys in white coats in offices talking about the science of what's going on. A lot of times it's junk science. Although there was one thing that kind of caught me with Leo G. Carroll's dialogue tonight, and that was when he was talking about the need to make all this food. He's like, by the year 2025, there'll be 3 billion people on the planet. I'm like, he's not wrong. There's over 3 billion now.
But he said 2020.
It was by 19, I think he said by 1990 or there'd be 3 billion people, and by the year 2000 there'd be 3,675,000,000 people. It was very specific. I wrote it down in my note because I found that hilarious of just how specific. I'm like, way to make him sound like a scientist. Was 3,675,000,000 people. I'm like, well, that's how'd you
that must have been in some kind of research at the time that the screenwriters used.
Well, and
I also find it interesting that the other doctor told him, "Oh, wow, nobody thinks that far into the future," and I'm like, "Oh, 2020 is the past for me, bro."
Well, Joe, to your point, if his calculation of that 3.6 was in the year 2000, then exponentially probably getting to about the 6 billion or whatever, 8. Whatever we're at now, I don't know.
Almost 8, yeah.
By 2025, that tracks. No, the one thing I thought, two things I thought were really cool about this movie was the reveal of the oversized animals in the lab.
Yes,
that was really cool, and it reminded me of Bride of Frankenstein with like the little, the jars and the people in there. And then the other thing was at the very end when the spider is being napalmed, drop it all, and you see the limbs on fire and it's kind of like moving. I immediately thought of that shot from John Carpenter's The Thing, where you see the spider that's on fire kind of scurrying past the "you gotta be fucking kidding me" line. I thought that was really cool.
I bet John Carpenter probably saw this movie too, because it seems like something that would be right up his alley.
Well, because when was Thing from Another World, the original?
51, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're the same era. So yeah, he's probably
50s,
watching this, being just drinking it all in and taking notes.
I know Joe Dante is a huge fan of this one. He talks about it a lot. I've never heard Carpenter talk about it, though. I mean, I haven't heard everything he said, so who knows? He may have discussed it somewhere that I just don't know about. But I know Joe Dante has been on record. He went to see this. He begged, according to Joe Dante, he begged his father to take him to see this because it was only playing 2 days near them. It was playing on a Wednesday and a Thursday. So he begged his dad to take him. He got so scared that he went out and just hung out in the lobby where apparently the staff was making fun of him for not being able to take the movie. He was like 6, and the staff was like making fun of him, like, "Oh, you can't handle it." He's like, and my dad was like, "Well, I paid for this movie, so I'm going to sit here and watch it." And he didn't want to go.
Well, honestly, in retrospect, I understand the staff of that theater because they're like, "What are you afraid of? It's just people talking for an hour and a half, then people come and blow up the spider."
There's the mutant person, which again may confuse some people because we open not with a spider, but with a mutated man wandering the desert. It's the stinger before the title, and you're just like, I found it an interesting choice to open the film like that, because you're like, here you have this mutant guy he stumbles, he falls and dies, and it goes tarantula, and you're like, but that wasn't a tarantula.
Did the tarantula kill him?
No, that was his name. His name was Nick Tarantula. He was a gangster hanging out in the desert.
He's like Boris Karloff. Just cut out the Nick. I'm just gonna go by Tarantula now.
Yeah, the whole is his flashback of how he ended up in that desert. No.
And it kind of looks like the creatures that are revealed in the Marilyn not Marilyn. Was it Marilyn Monroe in the Twilight Zone episode?
Oh, Masks.
The what?
No,
the episode Masks with the they had the people with the distorted faces.
Yeah, they were doing the surgery on the woman that turns out to be really beautiful.
I thought about that too. Yeah, that
kind of looked like them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then like they do for nearly every single one of these, because I think we even had that in them, was we have the manly man, the man of America man. If you looked up 50s man, it would be John Agar as our Dr. Matt Hastings.
He's in a lot of these kinds of movies during that time period too. I mean, these guys are all generic too. I'm sorry, I like John Agar, but I couldn't tell him from half these other guys that they would get as the heroes in these movies, whether it's this one or This Island Earth or whatever. It's always, kind of buff 50s.
Nice iron jaw type of deal.
Yeah.
Nothing phases him, even when he's making rather derogatory comments to our scientist, Steve. Celeste, what do you think of, Stephanie Clayton, though they nickname her Steve, because why? She's a guy, she's in a male job? I
don't think they ever said, did they?
No. What do you think of Steve in this?
I kind of liked her,
mm-hmm.
but she didn't come off very well for most of it. Like when she just, I don't know. I liked her character, but I didn't think they were trying to make people like her.
No, I don't think so either. Especially when you get the line in the car from the hero of our movie, where he says, he says something to the effect of, this is what you get when you give women the vote, ladies. You give ladies the vote, and then you have lady scientists.
Give the women the vote, and we get female scientists. It's like, wow.
It's a slippery slope. Soon they're going to want equal rights.
Yeah. And want to buy their own credit card. What the hell? Jeez. Well, there was the other comment they made with her too, is if we're not careful, if you're not careful, the Chamber of Commerce will list you as a public attraction.
That was a good line.
Yeah, that was flirtatious. That was flattery.
I don't know. I was just like, wow, man.
She also apparently has absolutely no peripheral vision, because when she's changing and the tarantula is right in her window, in that King Kong Fay Ray scene that we get later, how does
totally
she
what that was?
Like, if there was a giant like I have these big patio doors, these big glass patio doors. If it was broad daylight and a giant tarantula was blocking out the sun, I'd like to think I know.
Well, on top of that, it makes, I don't think this was just for the benefit of the audience. I think they actually made that weird, like, chittering sound wherever it went. That So she would have had to have heard that outside the window too. Like, yeah. How this thing sneaks up on anybody, I don't get it.
Hey, the rear projection on this, though, was really good. I mean, you guys mentioned it in the lab. When you get to the giant creatures, you don't see matte lines or anything with. I mean, that cleaned up really well for most of that, especially where you have the rat and the guinea pig, super huge guinea pigs. Those actually looked good. You're like, when I saw that shot, when I watched it again here, because it's been a long time since I watched it, I was like, holy shit, that lab scene actually is really good.
It looks good in like a cute way, not no, I want to eat it way.
Well, yeah. But I mean, in general, it looked, for special effects quality, it looked good. I mean, you've got the big, you're like, did they really make, like, no, that's just rear projection mark, but it looks very believable for those.
Well, this one's been doing that for like 20 years, so yeah, right. You must have gotten good at it. But yeah, I mean, the last time I saw it was, 360p on a little TV. So see, this time I went off the Universal box set of sci-fi classics, and I was surprised. I was like, oh man, because it's bigger than I've ever seen it. And I'm like, oh, this actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, it cleaned up well though too. I don't know who did the restoration, because the Amazon copy they had too, when I watched it, it was clean. It was like, wow, they took a lot of whoever, because I don't remember it looking that good when I watched it on a Horror Host show. Which is
Universal put it out on Bluray, so I think they did the
they
restoration themselves.
So that would make sense, because it looks good. I'm like, wow, but getting back to Steve, it's interesting what they do with her character, because you mentioned Them, which just came out a year before this, and that character, that female scientist, like played a major role, and we talked about it on the show a couple of years ago on here. Ian, I think you were on that episode. We talked about Them to where
I wasn't on that one.
Oh, you weren't on that one? I apologize. No. But her role was far more involved as far as the scientific stuff went on. Steve starts off being involved with it, where she's learning how to handle a radioactive isotope behind a lead wall with just I'm like sitting here going, that's not how that works, and then suddenly she becomes the damsel in distress later on. It's like, okay, we're in Them. She was involved the whole time with helping provide information and doing the studies on the big ants and all of that stuff. So it's just interesting contrast of how they wrote this character versus, a female scientist role prior in the Warner Brothers Them. So it's just, a mixed bag of what they were writing these characters with. And then, of course, our Sheriff Jack Andrews.
Was also from Creature from the Black Lagoon. He was Nestor Paiva, who was the ship captain in Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now losing the phony South American accent that he had in that. I liked him. I liked him here too. I just like him in general.
I think my favorite special effects shot though is the truck being launched.
Yes,
because you're watching it, you see the truck, and you're like, oh, and you see the spider come up, and you think you're going to get to see like a fake leg knock it off the road or something, but they do the close up of the spider, and the next cut, you've got this big truck like just flying through
the air, flying off the side of a hill.
Yeah, that was confusing to me because what's that?
They could do that.
Sure,
they wouldn't be that big, yeah.
But yeah, because the truck is like driving down a road, and then the spider comes upon it, and then I had to go back and rewind that because I'm like, what did I miss? Because it looked like they were suddenly falling down a chasm or off of the side of a mountain or something. Like they're just on a country road.
They catapulted that truck.
Into another zip code, apparently.
That'd be a fun one to see the behind the scenes on how they did that, because that truck was in midair. It had some air under it.
I would assume it was a model. I don't think it was a real truck.
Well, if it was a really good looking model, again, the special effects in this film, for when you do get them, for the most part, outside of the matte mistake, but for the most part, it's actually really good with the silhouette of the spider, which was probably a smart move, right? Because if you do a silhouette kind of dark of the spider, you don't have to worry about details and lighting.
Right.
Not until later. Not until you actually show it.
Not until you actually show it, yeah.
No, I think one of the most effective shots was when the spider escapes from the lab, because that looked like I don't know how they did it. It looked like they might have done it in really good miniature, because you see it like creeping out the door, and then you see kind of like the outside. So I don't know if that was projection, but yeah, I mean, I completely bought it because it's like an overgrown spider escaping from a human-sized lab, but it looked completely real.
And that was caused by our second mutated man, Paul Lund, I think was the character's name. He's the student that's working for, what is Leo DiCaro's name? I don't remember the
Professor
doctor.
Gerald Deemer.
Deemer. Okay, so he's working for Professor Deemer, and he also develops acromegalia.
Yeah.
Loses his shit and attacks the professor.
And he injects the professor with the isotope the
Yes.
protein isotope, which I found it interesting that it's like a protein, but it's dealing with radioactive isotopes. And I'm like sitting here going, wow, this is some of the most convoluted science of, and we did a series a few years ago here on the Spoiler Room. It came from the 50s where we covered 50s monster films. And I've heard some pretty junk science, but this one, the whole protein
Well, the more
thing,
confusing you make it, the more the people watching will just be like, okay, that's what it is. Because I don't know any better. So,
well, I do know though that radioactive isotopes aren't just held in like a classroom on a desk.
Well, we know that now. No, this reminds me. I'm reading.
It's because of that.
What?
It's because of that.
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore.
We can't
because
do
of
that
this
anymore.
movie.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm reading the early Avengers comics, written by Stan Lee, and like talk about junk science. Tony Stark's Iron Man suit is all powered by transistor technology, and he charges up his suit literally by plugging it into a wall outlet and sitting there as it ramps up his energy so he can go and fight the Hulk. I'm like, what is this early 60s nonsense?
Well, I mean, a little bit of insight. I saw an interview with Robert Downey Sr., where I think he was talking about Tulane Blacktop, and he was asking Monty Hellman afterwards. He's like, "How did you know all that car jargon and all that stuff?" And Monty looks at him and goes, "I made it up." And that's what these sci-fi movies were. This throw together a couple of scientific terms I've heard, and that's what caused it.
Yeah.
The audience at home isn't going to know any better, so who gives a shit?
No, I mean, you're not, as long as you make it sound. I mean, Star Trek made a living out of that with its technobabble. It's like you watch it, us fans of us Trekkies know the technobabble. If an Enterprise was running into a problem and they ran out of technobabble, they just ran it through the deflector dish, whatever it was. We'll just modify the deflector dish. It was like the Swiss Army knife. And you're like, okay, sure.
Or even the 60s Batman.
I bought it every time. I bought every episode.
Yeah, or the 60s Batman. My favorite, we'll get back to trash, but my favorite 60s Batman moment, I think it was from the movie, was when he had to get a sample of something. And he's like, okay, we could just put it in this bat thermos and cup. And on his utility belt, he pulls out like this lunchbox, like the old lunchbox thermos with the cup on top.
Why not? He has a shark repellent bat spray, for fuck's sake.
That's right, he does. So I guess, the protein isotope, radioactive isotope, isn't a far stretch because, you'd always get this wonderful science babble. Although my oldest put it this way, because we were joking about the isotope just sitting on the liquid isotope sitting on a table. And I go, oh, yeah, they're not protected by the radiation. He goes, oh, yeah, they are. It's all the lead paint in the walls protecting them from the radiation. And I'm like,
And the mercury in their tooth fillings.
And the mercury in their tooth fillings.
But all you need is, you need a smart guy, a smart sounding guy in a lab coat. Done.
Not a woman, though. Definitely not a woman. That was lady scientists.
Well, yeah, you can have lady scientists, but they need to be shown by the old guy, what to do. They can't just know this stuff, right?
Well, she's still a student because I think she's there are no lady scientists yet.
That's true. She was still a student, so that's true. So she was there to learn from the best.
There aren't any yet. I'll be the first.
Yeah. Oh man, and that lab, I always love these old 50s films and how they build the labs, because if you're familiar at all, even remotely, with equipment, you look at all the dials and stuff in the back and you're just like, what the fuck are those for? He's doing with the isotope and the protein, yet he's got the 3 machines in the back that just have dials and that catch fire. And I'm like, what in your research requires that?
He was multitasking. He wasn't just working on the giant animals. He was working on other stuff.
You know how many grants he has to get to have his secluded house in the mountains?
It's true.
He's working on so much shit we don't even know about.
No. Well, them big brains, though, how'd they put it? Those big brains don't learn manners. So,
So why do you think they picked tarantulas out of all spiders?
Because they're probably the creepiest in like terms of how people view them. Probably,
right.
They're probably more afraid of spiders than. I mean, them pulled it off with ants. I mean, Universal at this time also made the Deadly Mantis, so a giant praying mantis, the Leech Woman. So there were a lot of these. I think it's just if you were to ask anybody what insect they're most afraid of, probably spiders.
Yeah, I think it's because people like, Black Widow is obviously way worse than a tarantula, but you want something that visibly has that. I think they're adorable looking, but I think a lot of people don't feel that when they look at them.
I have to ask Celeste, because I find this fascinating, having a spider as a pet, because I've seen like little reels in that where people have little pet spiders where they're feeding them and they just look freaking adorable. But I'm like sitting here going, how do you train? It's just like when people have snakes for pets too. I can't wrap my head around how you can trust that creature to be a pet.
So basically most of the time I have 15 tarantulas. They're basically a box of dirt, for the most part. Sometimes some you'll see more than others. Mm-hmm. Some people do handle them. I don't handle mine because I'm so worried about something happening to them and I love them so much that to me, it's not worth like accidentally dropping it or startling it or anything like that or stressing it out because they don't like it. They get stressed.
Plus, they keep annoying bugs out of your house.
Well, not my tarantulas. They're kind of all locked up, but
no, the house spiders, like we have a ton of them to where I'll be filming a video occasionally in the basement. And so I'm like, why is my camera skewed? And then I'll look, and sure enough, little spider just comes down and he wants to be on camera. And I'm like, oh, okay. And we don't kill them because when we have that, we have zero flies or anything in our house. It's like, I'm good. It's when you get those recluse ones that show up or the little, well, you're like, I don't know about that one. But
yeah, so long time ago, I read like the two instinctual fears humans have are snakes and spiders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too like the shape of it and the movement and stuff. It's like an instinctive fear. So I think there's a certain shape and tarantulas kind of have that shape of spider that's terrifying.
Well, and reputation too. I mean, out of all, types of spiders, Black Widow in that, but when you say tarantula, people know immediately. Yeah. That's like an instant recognition. And while we say Black Widow, if you think about what our spider does roaming the desert, you don't really associate that with a Black Widow. You associate Black Widow with kind of the web and then biting something, a little more, whereas tarantulas, they're on the ground more. You usually see that. And then we even get like every 50s sci-fi film, it's educational. They give you the little educational reel about a tarantula.
I have to give you a little more though, because them roaming the desert isn't really accurate to most tarantulas. They're opportunistic hunters, which means they will just camp. They'll have a very small area, which is why you see my spider in such a small tank. She gets stressed out if it's bigger. So she just wants to sit by her little burrow and area and wait, and something will come to her. And then she'll start. She doesn't go hunting anything.
So this tarantula then is not scientifically accurate. Never mind the fact that it's huge, but it's just roaming the desert looking for redneck.
That would not be accurate to the majority of tarantula behavior.
Wow. Look at
that. It's a great question about like why the tarantula. Because I'm thinking about other spiders. I'm no spider expert, but usually when I think spiders, I think kind of like spindly legs, maybe, a larger kind of bulbous, not a carapace, but like a thorax.
Mm-hmm.
But the tarantula is known for being kind of a bulkier, heftier looking creature that's very hairy, and it's got these kind of substantial limbs and then the giant fangs. So like that is an icon, like a mutated giant Black Widow would be kind of creepy, but still it doesn't cast the same silhouette as a giant inky kind of shape, shape of the spider
Yeah.
coming up over the horizon. So yeah, I think it's the perfect killing machine.
A huge tick would be creepier though.
Huge tick.
Ugh.
I've seen that. There's movies with large ticks. Ticks was it?
Ticks is what? Yeah, I was
where
gonna
they're
say.
like this big, and they grew. They're this is weird. This is gross too. Yeah. Celeste is like, ew.
Yeah.
What's also, I also think they picked the tarantula because it'd be the easiest to convey weight and size. Because if you had like a garden spider or one of those yellow, whatever, I forgot the names of the yellow spiders, the yellow and black ones or whatever with the thinner legs, when you do the silhouette of the thinner leg, yeah, it looks creepy, but it doesn't feel like it's there and it's foreboding. It feels a little more sneaky. Whereas this thing, the tarantula, it's got weight to it because of the fur. It gives it more volume on the camera. And when it's walking, you're just like, it feels like it's at least there, and it's a little bit more threatening. It's if it was a black widow, it'd be hiding behind mountains and such, and this thing is just trucking through the wood, the desert, and it's just happening across people, and it's like, oh hey, I'm hungry.
And horses.
That's part of it, because tarantulas, especially the grammostolas, they move pretty slowly for the most part. They're not quick moving. They're slow. They kind of walk like they capture the walk like perfectly in the way they showed it. In that, and I think that is more eerie than something that just runs at you. Like if it was a bunch of smaller ones, you wouldn't have tarantulas. You would have like black widows or something smaller. But if you're going to have one giant one, it's got to be a tarantula, I guess.
Yeah, it's effective. It gets the idea across. And yeah, you wait till the 20 minutes, and then you get the exciting where it gets into full effect. Though we do get to see the tarantula in its remnants a little bit earlier after it lay wastes to again, cows, Ian. Well, you weren't here last week, but Joe, cows, spiders and cows. What the heck is it? Because the giant spider invasion, we had that as well. The cows got eaten by the spiders first.
I think again, it's because you imagine a cow. A cow is huge. And if this thing can strip a cow of its flesh and bone, then oh my God, obviously it's something that's gonna be terrifying, and we probably can't handle it ourselves as humans unless we napalm it. And then it goes after the horses. Later on in the movie, it goes after all the horses, and the horses are freaked out by it. Rightfully so, because if any animal big enough to take out a horse and like strip it bare down to the bone is going to be an animal you don't want to come across. So,
remember that speech though when the scientist was talking about, well, the guy was talking about tarantulas. And he was saying, oh, they won't really attack you and stuff like that. They're not, the venom isn't that bad, all this stuff. And he's like, oh, so it's kind of like a pet. And he's like, no, but it's just part of the environment. You accept it. And that made the ending so much more sad to me, because were it not for the scientist's actions, that tarantula would have gone on to have a happy little tarantula life,
We assume. It might have had several divorces and an alcohol problem, but
addicted to radioactive isotopes. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it is like she said. A lot of these movies are scientists are doing shit they shouldn't be doing, and they do end up ruining this poor animal's life.
Well,
and some people too,
and some people. Absolutely, and some people. And one of the things I always find interesting in these films too, and Tarantula is a prime example of that, is like, okay, yeah, they're experimenting on a guinea pig, okay, and they're experimenting on a rat, yeah, and a rabbit, yeah, that's not quite a big deal, or a tarantula. And then he grabs a monkey, and he experiments, and I'm like, yeah, you put that in there to get the people, because some people associate apes with human, and it's like, well, there you go. I mean, not only was already experimenting on, his two human buddies, but then he's got the monkey, and that poor thing is like screaming.
Why do you need the monkey when you're already
the humans
experimenting on humans anyway?
Well, you needed that controller, I guess. I don't know, that control.
I think they kind of really tried to hammer home that message though in this movie, because of all the lecturing that they did about tarantulas, and they had like the poor little monkey screaming.
Yeah, the poor little monkey. And then you had the fire where it ended up killing the animals in the lab.
Weren't they going to use them for food anyway, though?
He was supposedly going to use them for food. So I mean, they just got early barbecued, maybe. I don't know. Well, what's funny is he doesn't specify exactly how to use the nutrient. They're going to use the nutrient. He implies, he doesn't say, hey, we're actually going. He's like, we've got these big animals. We need to increase our resources by using, but he doesn't say, hey, we're going to inject a bunch of big cows so that we get big cows and get beef. It was like they almost skirt around it a little bit of him saying, we're going to use this chemical for food, for animals as food. He just says resources. And I was wondering, I thought that was an interesting choice because he's experimenting on animals, but he never actually says we're going to eat more larger animals because we're going to need them for the 3 billion some odd people.
Why would he inject it on people then?
Yeah, I don't know why he would
affect the resource thing if he's worried about resources.
Yeah, if the people end up being giant, yeah.
Yeah, then wouldn't they need more resources? And they have less space on the planet? It doesn't actually make any sense.
Maybe the company that was contracting him to do these experiments also made Soylent Green.
And you needed bigger crackers.
You're gonna need bigger people.
It's how you get the jumbo crackers out of Soylent Green. Yeah. No, the people angle. That's why it was the weirdest thing when you open with a mutated person. Then he talks about the advanced stages, and you're like, wait, okay, so this gives people the advanced stage of this disease, but when you inject it on animals, it makes them bigger. It's like, why didn't we get like a bunch of 50-foot interns?
Right. And don't let the porn industry get a hold of it.
Well, they probably done that many times already. I don't know, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But yeah, it was really weird on the effect it had on humans versus animals. But again, I mean, we're overthinking the science, and they're just throwing in the science enough.
We're putting way more thought into the science than the screenwriters did.
The screenwriters did.
I was going to say, when you were like, I don't understand, like how, like the screenwriters didn't figure it out. That's why we never got an explanation.
No.
I think it makes sense.
The other thing that got me watching this for the solution was, okay, you got this huge spider. It's heading to town, and man, they evacuate the town quick. It was like half hour. Yeah, no problem. Boom. Town's gone. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. Good effectiveness there. So the tarantula is coming, and they call the National Guard. And one of the cool things they do in this horror film is these guys actually have someone do stuff. They don't wait till they get to town and then call the National Guard or whatever. While they're in, like, they're like, hey, call the National Guard. And the dude like did it like that. It's like, or the army.
78 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, but still, I loved that quick response on how they came up with plans, and it's like, no, we're enacting it now. But the planes come, and I'm like, okay, you've got these planes, and they've got the missiles and napalm. Big, huge spider. Just hit the napalm first. Why did you have to fire the missiles first? And then you're in the middle of the desert. It's not like you're going to set anything really substantial on fire, but they don't. They fire their missiles first, which do absolutely nothing to the spider. And then the plane goes.
That guy in the plane, total nothing of an actor. Probably never did anything ever again. Who was that jet pilot?
Do we have a credit on that guy?
That's what I was looking. I was looking to see if we have a credit on that guy because
or some shit like that. Never heard of him.
They like grabbed a grip or something and then just shoved
some nobody.
They grabbed some old cockpit, set and go, here, we need to do some pickup shots. Here, act like you're firing missiles. Okay, now say this line for the napalm. Yeah, dump them all.
So did we ever see his face, or was it just behind the visor?
No, it was in the visor. It was in the helmet and visor. Yeah.
But I mean, that was Clint Eastwood.
That was Clint Eastwood. Yes.
Yeah.
And he was in Jack Arnold's next movie, which was Revenge of the Creature, the second creature from the Black Lagoon movie. He plays a lab assistant in that one. So yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
humble beginnings.
So yeah, that was ye old Clint Eastwood flying the jet, dropping the napalm. See, what they don't tell you is what his real name is. It was secret because he would go on that pilot to do even more training, right? And he'd become a crack pilot. And eventually he would have to take and steal a stealth fighter named Firefox many decades later.
Wait, was that also a Universal movie?
Firefox? I think it might.
I think it might have been. So this is a prequel.
Sorry.
Why not?
Help.
Yes.
Well, why not? Why not? Firefox. Yeah. You know, that same pilot who took out Tarantula. See, now I want that combined universe. I want the combined universe where Clint Eastwood's the pilot who took out the tarantula, and he is the pilot later on, Mitchell Grant, who would go on to get the stealth prototype jet fighter Firefox.
In our hearts, this will be the prequel.
That's right. This is the prequel to that. He had to learn. The production, the studio for that was Warner Brothers.
Okay.
That was Firefox was Warner Brothers, so not quite.
Damn, we almost had it.
We almost had it. We almost had a combined Tarantula Firefox universe.
Like that theory that the Rock is actually a late sequel to the James Bond movies because the dialogue that's in there makes it sound like Sean Connery's character was
MI6
was 007 in Diamonds Are Forever. Go back and rewatch it, Ian. There's a theory because of where he was found or something like that. What was Sean Connery's character's name? John something?
Yeah.
Because of where he was found, the theory is that it's a backdoor sequel to Diamonds Are Forever. It's a theory. Go ahead and look it up after we're done.
Oh my god!
Wow. I've watched The Rock in a long time. That'd be a fresh one. That turns 30 next year.
Winners go home and prom queen. No, but
I married prom queen.
In Tarantula, what I found interesting was the head scientist guy, our old professor guy, didn't notice he was injected with something. When he gets knocked out by Paul, who sets fire to the lab, and he wakes up, it's like, I would have thought that would have been at least a little sore or something that you were injected, but he's like, nope. And then he's like, pay no attention to my mutation. We're just going to keep doing experiments.
And his face starts instantly drooping too. Like this is like half an hour after he was injected by it. He's already like,
and she's all like, and Steve's trying. She's like, are you feeling okay, doctor? He's like, I'm fine.
Yeah, she was like, your face. He's like, no way.
Well, in his final mutated state, he really had like that sloth from the Goonies look. I mean, it was really impressive makeup. When I was down here and up there, yeah.
And you know what? I give anybody who could do that credit because actually Celeste was with me last year when we were on the set of a trauma movie, and they were doing a plaster cast of the top of my head because they were going to have my eyeballs bulge out apparently, and like I had to sit there with like the inability to open your eyes under plaster cast, and he was probably under that for a long time too. So after doing that, like I think after what did I go like 5 minutes, I was like, oh my god, and I was telling her, I'm like, oh my god, this is freaking me out.
Yeah,
like,
you were like
the inability to open your eyes at all.
Is it because you kind of felt like, is something going wrong? Like, will I ever be able to open my eyes again, or is it just like this?
I think it's just you psych myself out. I think it's just because like you take for granted that you're able to just open your eyes all the time, and they had this plaster cast on me for like 10 minutes, and I'm like 5 minutes in, I'm like, oh my god, I can't, and I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I made it through the 10 minutes or whatever it was, but
You're probably worried about sunburning your nipples.
Oh yeah, because they cut the nipples out of my shirt.
I sprayed sunscreen on them.
Well, you weren't even wearing a shirt. You were just in pasties, so that was. Lloyd knew what he
was
wanted.
funny. It was less funny.
Oh, wow. How we go from tarantulas to talking about Joe's sunburnt nipples, I don't know, but that's what you get here in the spoiler room.
I think when Lloyd said he wanted us to play Naked Terrorist, I was like, Lloyd, do you think I still weigh what I weighed in 2018? Because I'm like 50 pounds heavier now.
Oh, now I have that mental image in my head. Thank you. Oh, yeah. But, the 50s monster films were always interesting because of what they were coming up with. Because, again, why I like looking at these older films is seeing what they did back then. And Tarantula is one of those to where even if, it is a slow start, like you guys said, the makeup on the mutated people for back then looked really good. The forced perspective they did on a lot of stuff, really good. They're launching trucks. They got miniatures. Yeah, that shot at the end of the big tarantula on fire on the edge of town. I mean, it feels like it's a large tarantula. They do a lot of interesting camera work and stuff, and it is always fun watching these old movies like that to see, because a lot of this stuff they were trying to figure out. Even when we were looking at like the 30s horror films and that, and other films, it's like they're trying to figure out how to do this. And especially in the 50s, how do we do this on a cheap buck? Because they don't want to spend too much on it, because they don't have like a huge name. You don't have Jimmy Stewart fighting tarantula, though that would have been really cool.
You'd never get that.
To see that.
Jimmy Stewart would never make this movie.
Well, what do you got? What do you got there? Oh, you got a big guinea pig there.
The best we can get is the best actor we can get is the guy who's in 5 of Hitchcock's best movies. And a 6th movie that's not as good as the other 5. But I think, if anything, Leo G. Carroll probably going into this, obviously now the biggest star in it is Clint Eastwood.
Well,
but
yeah.
I think he's only got like one line in this, but going into this, I mean, Leo G. Carroll was probably like the get of it. John Agar was kind of like, I guess I could compare it to Dracula, because you had Bela Lugosi and you had David Manners as the the romantic lead. And I think that's what John Agar was at this point. Although I like John Agar better than David Manners. I don't think he was as bland. But he was like the big sci-fi guy. But Leo G. Carroll was like, he's the guy that was in Suspicion and Spellbound and Strangers on a Train. So he was the guy who had like the acting gravitas for this. And probably the best known at the time. Well,
and let's not look past Stephanie, if you will. Mara Corday. She would go on to do a number of films with Eastwood, small parts, but she was in a lot of his stuff because she was friends with him. She was in The Gauntlet, Sudden Impact, Pink Cadillac, and The Rookie.
One thing that always struck me about Eastwood is he seemed to be loyal to the people who were good to him when he was coming up. Because he loved Don Siegel, and he loved a lot of the people that he worked with on these lower budget movies, and he would use them when he became a big star and when he was directing himself. So props to him. He was loyal to the people who were good to him.
Yeah, and you know what? She was also in a film called Foxfire, which came out the same year. A different movie entirely, not involving a stealth jet, but she was in Foxfire as well. Huh. Yeah. I mean, it looks like for her filmography, she did a lot of smaller roles or, supporting roles. It doesn't look like she was really in any leading roles ever, but she was in steady work. And yeah, her last 4 films, Clint Eastwood cast her in him. So, if nothing else, like you said, loyalty and people he knew, he got her roles, probably when she wasn't able to get them anymore because of ageism in Hollywood. Yes, it's still there. Unfortunately,
it never went away.
And I liked her actually acting in here. She held her own with her, with our leading man until the plot called for her not to. You know,
Yeah, I was gonna say she needed to be incompetent at the end. So, which is generally what happens in these too, because it even happens in This Island Earth.
yeah.
You know, you get a woman who's completely capable until she comes face to face with the monster, and then it's like now she's completely useless.
That's what happens.
Well, but I mean, honestly, in fairness, that happens to the guys in this movie a lot too. You have ranchers, you have the rednecks, you have people who are out there working the land, doing their jobs, driving around. And all of a sudden, they come face to face with a monster, and they turn to jelly too. It's not, specifically a sex thing.
I know I would.
You got a 50-foot fucking tarantula coming at me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's that one guy that's running away. His friend trips. He goes back to help his friend, and that's what gets him killed. And I'm like, that's a good friend. He got killed too. No, he didn't do anything to save his friend. He tried though, and I think he gets an A. He gets an A for effort. You got the other guy who's a friend of John Agar's friend, who where they're setting up the roadblocks and everything. He goes, giant spider. I'll believe it when I see it. There it is.
Yeah. Oh, the reporter. Yeah, the reporter. Yeah. The wonderful reporter in here who they keep telling, don't report this because we don't want to panic. He's like, a news story is a news story. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I see news hasn't changed in, 70 years.
Well, I mean, he's right.
Yeah. He wasn't right. I mean,
I can see both sides of that argument. I can see the side of law enforcement saying, no, if you report this, there will be a massive panic. Because of course there would be. What is the reaction to? There's a giant 50-foot spider a few miles down the road. It's coming to kill you. Yeah, it's going to cause panic. But at the same time, I kind of see the reporter going, no, the public has a right to know that there's a giant 50-foot spider 5 miles down that's coming to eat them.
What they need to do is combine it with what to actually do about the giant spider. So don't just tell people so they panic. Say, there's a giant 50-foot spider coming at you. Get in your basement if you have one. If you don't have one, go to a neighbor's basement, whatever it would be,
leave town.
Direct people on what to do. Otherwise, you will have panic. But if you tell people what to do, they'll actually probably do it out of fear.
The problem with that, though, is you don't know what to do and to tell people in the case of a giant, 100-foot spider. Like if you tell them to go to their basement, their house could get stepped on, right?
If it behaves like a tarantula, I could tell people what to do.
There you go. Celeste will know exactly. So, folks, when we do get the giant spider invasion that will happen from the Midwest from a meteor that falls down, we saw it last week. When it happens, we're going to call Celeste because Celeste will know what to do about giant spiders.
And she even lives in Wisconsin, so it works.
So it works even better that way.
Are you familiar with that one, the giant spider invasion? It's a Wisconsin movie, so I don't know. I don't know if you've ever seen it. No. Oh, I gotta send it to you. It's a
wonderfully low budget camp. It's
terrible but fun.
It's Tarantula. It's one of those things where I think. And I mentioned a classic because it's talked about a lot. It's referenced a lot. Hell, freaking Rocky Horror Picture Show, which we covered at the beginning of this year, which turned 50 this year, along with me. The song references Leo G. Carroll.
I knew Leo G. Carroll was over the barrel when the tarantula took to the hills. Yeah.
And it's because it's a giant monster film, and it's just one of those where I think it just struck a chord with pop culture, if anything, to where it still gets talked about today. I mean, we're talking about, but I've seen it referenced before. People talk about, because I think it connects to the big fear of spiders. That's such a common fear. I know my coworker alone, she, if there's a spider that happens in the office, we're lucky she doesn't set fire to the entire office when that happens. She'll be, bam, and like spider. She's like, yeah.
I try to get a little piece of paper and pick it up.
I usually toss them out the window. Yeah. No, she usually, unless someone else will get it for her. But if it jumps in front of her, I think it's reactionary. So, but yeah, I usually try to toss them out.
I think that needs to be something we train kids on in school now, because again, the little spiders that are around your house are making sure you don't get other bugs. So leave them alone. They will do their job. They will make your house more hospitable. Lift them up with a little piece of paper, move them somewhere where they're not going to freak you out.
Just don't inject them with a radioactive isotope that you might have.
Definitely don't do that.
you know.
It's a public
or if
service
you
you're
do,
providing.
proceed with caution, document it, let people know.
Yeah, there you go. Put a TikTok on it. Yo, look at this spider. I injected it with a radioactive isotope like 5 hours ago, and oh, it's so big now. Like
I'll
and
update you
subscribe.
tomorrow. Stay tuned for part 2.
Oh my god, now I want a remake of Tarantula only in today's
No,
world.
it's good. No, here's what's gonna happen if we get a remake of Tarantula. It's gonna be 2.5 hours long. We're gonna get a bunch of fucking boardroom scenes where people are discussing what to do with it. No, let's leave this alone. It's 80 minutes. It's fine. I don't need a 3-hour epic reimagining of Tarantula. Because they did that with House of Frankenstein. NBC made a remake of House of Frankenstein in 1997. It was 3 hours long and it was a fucking miniseries. You don't remember this?
Oh, I remember. Okay, no, now you're talking about
it was a 2-night miniseries. So
it was one of those
leave these alone.
It was one of those event miniseries. Yeah.
Although I wouldn't have been shocked had the Dark Universe worked out. Had the Mummy, the Tom Cruise Mummy, not sucked so bad, maybe we would have eventually gotten to Tarantula, but.
That would have been fun. I at least wanted my Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde with Russell Crowe, because that was the only highlight of that entire movie was him as that, at least.
That was one of the I never got to that. I never got to the post credits because I think I made it through like an hour of the movie and I'm like, life is too short. I cannot do this.
The Dark Universe Initiative, but
yeah, given the things you watch, it's got to be really bad because I've seen you spend some time on some very interesting things.
That sounds like people I know that say, "Wow, Mark, if you think it's bad, holy crap, it's gotta be bad." So,
I was going to say that about what you were talking about in the pre-show. I was like, "Oh my god, wait a minute! Somebody didn't like your review of their movie. Man, it must have been really terrible." Because I feel like you're very generous a lot of times.
Yeah, I may be guilty of that. I like a lot of things. I'm very, flexible like that. But if I don't like, yeah, not to get on a sidetrack, but let's just say that Vacation requel that came out. Oh yeah.
I still have not seen that.
Oh, like flames, like on the side of my face, flames.
But is it worse than Christmas Vacation 2, Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure?
At least that was direct to video, so that one you can be a little bit forgiving, So that I really like the Vacation remake.
Oh, okay.
I know you do.
I haven't seen it yet, so I can't tell you one way or the other how I feel about it.
Good on you, Ian. You also like Freddy Got Fingered, so mad props to you.
Hey, that's been on the Criterion channel.
I'm not even going to say anything about that movie.
Yeah.
It's got a special place in my heart.
You too. Yes. Am I the only one here who doesn't like Freddy Got Fingered?
You're not. It's kind of received a little bit of a resurgence because the Criterion channel put it up as a one of the great flops of history or something. They were doing a theme month with like the biggest flops in cinema history, and they put that on there. So it's kind of gotten a little bit of a.
I still get hate comments for criticizing Freddy Got Fingered.
I actually know this. She's on TikTok, but I see her stuff on Instagram. Movie Rex by Lex, and I love her stuff. But she went to the Criterion closet and she brought DVD copies of Freddy Got Fingered and put them in the Criterion closet.
I sent Ian my VHS copy of Freddy Got Fingered, so there you go.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's awesome.
It's on his shelf somewhere because I'm like, it was in the pile of VHS, and I'm like, I'm never gonna watch this, but I know someone who would really appreciate this, so I've
rearranged some stuff. It's back there somewhere, but
I believe you.
I first watched it on VHS. I first watched it on VHS.
Oh, so did I, because I didn't see it in the theater. I rented it from the video store.
Yeah,
I contributed to its opening weekend box office. Yeah,
good on you.
I was the one.
You were like of 5 people.
Well, and one of those other people was my movie buddy I went with, Brian. So yeah, we saw it together.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, Oh, so not Freddy Got Fingered. It is Tarantula. We talked about it. We'll wrap it up here. Final thoughts with it. Yes, I do call it a classic because it is referenced that often, but some people, as we've shown tonight, don't think it's a classic. But your final thoughts with Tarantula. Celeste, you first. Could you recommend this to someone who likes 50s monster films or just in general?
I totally would. And I think beyond just the budgeting, I think one of the reasons that they showed so little of the spider for so long is because it was a movie that's built on an already existing fear. They didn't have to create that fear. They had to create the suspense that goes along with the fear. So I think it made sense from the movie making perspective to do that. Otherwise, it's just budget. But yeah, I love tarantulas. So I just had a little bit of joy seeing tarantulas in general, and I liked the plot even though it was very predictable.
Yeah, well, you can say that about a lot of the early monster films, these 50s monster films. All of them pretty much are predictable. You're like, oh, I know who this is and I know where this is going. Yep, there goes the sheriff. You're just waiting on when the sheriff's gonna die. It's not if, it's like, when will the monster do the sheriff in?
But I did also really like that there was a lady scientist.
Yes. There is a lady scientist, like I said, and those characters were more prominent. They just were written in various ways.
The reason you know what's going to happen is because they all use the same template. They just keep switching minor pieces around. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it evolves over time. But yeah, I had fun with it. I had fun with it the first time I watched it. I had fun with it today. It is kind of endearing, and I will say this, Ian, if you didn't like Tarantula, this is, of all the giant monster movies that I've seen from this time period, this is probably the best one. So
you may want to avoid this.
Yeah, you may want to avoid the genre entirely, because it's all downhill from here for a while until like the 70s when you get Jaws.
Yeah.
And even that's not like a giant monster movie. That's a regular sized shark, I think. But
and Ian, I know you wouldn't recommend this because you found it rather a sleeper, but
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I think as I would recommend it strictly as an academic exercise. Like, what are 1950s monster movies? Go watch this. But honestly, I would just recommend looking up the best parts on YouTube and just like forgetting the rest. Because honestly, I think the big problem I have with it is that last 20 minutes, the kind of the centerpiece, it has nothing to do with the hour that led up
beforehand,
to it, right? I mean, because as we discussed, it's mostly about this weird, protein experiment and the doctor trying to hide the fact that he was injected with this thing that's mutating his body. We saw the tarantula escape, early on in the movie, and at the end we see it giant and coming up over the mountain, and the military sent in. You could have had anything in between that last.
I mean, honestly, you could probably cut out a lot of the dialogue scene. I feel like this movie does suffer a little bit from that, because it's what happened with them. They feel like they need to explain everything to you before they show you the giant monster attack.
Well, but worse than that, the audience is way ahead of the characters in the movie. Because they find the giant white puddle of goo, and they're like, oh, what's that? I don't know. And then 10 minutes later, they come back, oh, what's that? Oh, well, we moved the cattle were over it. They were sitting in that stuff. And the guy, I think he tasted
it. I love that. He sat there and he sniffed it and he touched it. And then he went, huh. And I'm just like, dude, what the
you don't know what it is.
Right, but when they first see that giant puddle, I'm like, oh, that's probably like remnants from the spider or spider venom or something. But it takes the movie 20 minutes to catch up to where I am. Let's have another smoke and talk about the lady scientist. Okay,
looks like something X-rated.
It did. Oh, the pools of white stuff. Yeah, I
was like, not be tasting that. Nope.
That tarantula was coming around the mountain when he came.
He did.
But
also kind of resembles tarantula poop.
Yeah, there. Oh,
well, there's another way to go with it, sir.
Some of their defense mechanism is to shoot poop at you. So.
Well,
wow.
Not that
I
kind.
love. I am so glad you're here, Celeste, because I've learned more about tarantulas, and I mean this seriously. I learned more about tarantulas in the last hour or so than I knew before, and I find it fascinating. It makes me want to know even more about tarantulas because I didn't realize they shot their poop as a defense mechanism. So they're not.
Mostly the ones that live in trees do that, not the other ones.
Oh, so did the monkeys learn from the tarantulas, or the tarantulas learn from the monkeys?
Tarantulas don't learn much. They're not the smartest.
So the monkeys probably learned from the tarantulas. They came up on a tarantula, and the tarantula was like, "Oh yeah," and they were like, "Oh, that's a good idea."
That's what monkeys do. Monkeys see, monkey do.
Is the missing link the spider monkey?
Oh, there you go. You never know.
Dude, you just created a sci-fi movie.
You did. A monkey with like 8 legs. Oh my God. Copyright Spoiler Room. There you go.
I would call it Freddy Got 8 Fingers.
And on that note, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. I thank you all for our live folks tuning in, and my wonderful crew who are gracious enough to donate their time, show up on the show, and talk crazy creature features and such. And so now, as always, this is where we give our license to shill to our wonderful crew members. So Joe, you got anything to shill, sir?
Yeah, I'll shill Hex and Arcane. I happen to be hanging out with one of the hosts on Friday, and she gave me this cool shirt, and
that is a cool shirt.
I wore it tonight to the show.
Oh, there you go.
A little out of season because a little out of season because you got the little pumpkin there, but hey.
It's never out of season for Halloween.
Right. There's a little news thing. Hallmark is going to start making Halloween movies now. I saw that today.
Wait,
Lacey Chabert, is that her name?
Chabert from Party of Five, yeah, and
she's going to be in the first one. I'm not even joking. You can look it up. I don't remember the title, but yeah, it's going to be. So
the covers, instead of being the red and white Christmas, they're just going to be orange and brown.
Probably, yeah.
So wait, are these going to be just like Halloween season themed rom-coms like they do with Christmas? Or are they going to try like?
I didn't really read the article. I just saw the headline, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
It'll probably be fall themed rom-coms versus Christmas themed.
Probably
a pumpkin spike latte. There you go.
Oh, if they're anything like,
I saw that today, so that's interesting because we'll be seeing those.
Oof, if it's anything like a California Christmas, I'm good. Really, I am. I watched those both for my Consequence film. I got Consequence films to watch yet, but oof, those were. Whoo, howdy. Speaking of Hex and Arcane, Celeste, please. License to shill is yours. Shill away.
All right. Yes, I'm Celeste from Hex and Arcane Horror Hosts. You can find us on www.hexandarcane.com. We're on YouTube. We're on every social media pretty much. Just Google us.
Awesome. Yeah, and they do awesome coverage of stuff and great content. And please check that out. And Ian, license to shill, sir.
I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com, and also right here on YouTube. Just look up Kicking the Seat and you'll find me there doing weekly movie reviews and interviews and roundtables and all that kind of fun stuff. And I'm also here most Mondays talking movies with the crew. Yeah.
Awesome. And I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate all of the folks who tuned into the live show. Yes, we are wrapping up all legs a month. We've got 2 more to go because there's 5 Mondays this month. So we are going to be looking at Kingdom of the Spiders next week with Mr. William Shatner, Spock. There's spiders. No, and then we'll be ending it with Arachnophobia. And then next month is my birthday month when I turn actual 50, and that I didn't spin the wheel around them. It's going to be Jaws month. Okay, it just is a given. It's Jaws month. So we're going to go Jaws 1 through 4 in July. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go in order. So tune in for that if you like your monster films and you want to hear me why I have a personal connection to Jaws in a number of ways. Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, like, subscribe, bells and whistles, all that for all these wonderful folks' content and our stuff too here if you care to. And until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.